this church. It's very welcoming. It's this and that. But when we got there, again, the same type of experience where we just didn't feel it was. They did have more families of color at this particular church. It was much smaller, but it was more. It seemed like it was more for
you hear that?
Sake.
You hear that?
Than it was because they actually understood the gospel and understood the need for racial reconciliation.
Did anyone in the church ever say anything that made you feel uncomfortable? Do anything?
It wasn't. There was nothing ever really overt that happened. It was just
black folks.
We just knew that we didn't.
Israelites
and
leaving
church,
white mega churches, leaving Christianity.
Color there were black families. But they were so sparse, and from the pulpit. I think the message from the pulpit was not one that was inclusive, and I think that's one of the biggest
so-called Negroes are leaving these churches, man.
That he is willing to have.
You're dying. You're freaking dying, man.
That you will not hear from a lot of congregations today, which sets Bentry apart from a lot of predominantly white churches.
Yeah, we have a comment here from Mohammed Ziyadin, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that last name. Mohammed says, neither God nor Jesus has said in the Bible that black and whites should have separate churches. And I'm curious, I want to ask you, Michelle, are you all cognizant of racial demographics of the congregation as white members?
Scripture say, come out from among them and be ye separate. You're not supposed to get together with so-called white people, Edomites.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we want to reflect what heaven looks like. Those who believe in Jesus and are image bearers, we all look different as image bearers of our Creator, and would love for our church to reflect what heaven looks like and be brothers and sisters in Christ, and to be open to anyone regardless of their race, definitely. And I think the demographic of the area where our church is located is changing, and so we want to be a church that's open.
Stop being an Uncle Tom and leave this white man's church system.
So absolutely, it's
because
we have a long way to go.
If they're right, everything in heaven is so-called white. The Most High is white. Sweet Jesus is white. The angels is white. You're going to feel left out of place, man. You out of your goddamn mind if you still going to a church with Edomites, man.
Education and work that needs to be done.
Yeah, let me put...
A comment from Darnell Barber. Darnell says, left one of these churches a few years ago, didn't appreciate pastor telling congregation who they should vote for when the recommended candidate was a milquetoast racist. Another question for you, Michelle. I mean, do you, the phenomenon that we're talking about here is, black people leaving predominantly white churches. Do you understand why that would happen? I'm just curious, from as someone, as a white person who goes to a church that, embraces people of color. Do you understand why that's happening and what response?
Yeah, let me just read this here. It says, the New York Times, English black worshipers have been quietly fleeing white megachurches since the 2016 elections. How can black and white worshipers create churches that are integrated and inclusive? Join our live chat with April Thomas and Michael Henderson as they discuss their efforts to bridge the color line at their church in Carrollton, Texas. New York NYT writer, New York Times writer John Elegant will take your questions. April, blah blah blah. Oh boy, let me read that again. The black worshipers have been quietly fleeing white megachurches since the 2016 election. How can black and white worshipers create megachurches that are integrated and inclusive? It's never going to happen because so-called white people think they're better than you, and so-called white people have no business being in the church anyway, if that's the church of God, so to speak. When I say church, I'm using it in a biblical sense, a gathering, okay? A congregation. If 2 or 3 gather together, that's a church right there. You can be at a restaurant and you start, you know, teaching out of the scriptures. That's a church right there, okay? Okay, the topic again, the New York Times, English, black worshipers have been quietly fleeing white megachurches since the 2016 elections. Okay, so let me zoom in on it so you can see it, because I hope you can see it anyway. I'm gonna put the sound back up.
Or white, very affluent families who, you know, said, well, you know, the reason if you are, and they weren't necessarily directing it at me and my family, but the comment was made, if the reason that you're not where we are or doing what we are doing or having what we have is because you haven't prayed enough or because of your own personal responsibility. It was just not a good feeling at all. And even from the...
Yeah, they're putting a guilt trip on Jake. If you in a race, if you in the 100-yard dash, and they have 2 guns and they have a so-called white man, Edomite, and then they have you, and they have a gun for the white Edomite, and they have a gun for you that go off when you run that race. They said, when you hear your gun, run. If they take the Edomite gun for the Edomite racer and they blast it, the Edomite's going to start running. If they wait, let's say it takes you 12 minutes to do the 100-yard dash, they're going to hit your gun at maybe 7 minutes. So who's going to win? Who's going to win? Esau's going to win every time because the game is rigged, man. See, Edomites, you know, when you go for a job, you're going to get a particular job because you're an Edomite. You're a so-called Israelite or so-called Negro, go for that same job if they're looking for an Edomite, unless they're looking for a token. Man. Okay, let's deal with, you know, when you go to these mega churches, Christian churches, which is set up by, as I use the terms, Renaissance Christianity and plantation Christianity, all right? The slaves were taught Renaissance Christianity, meaning everything that has to do with the scriptures is so-called white or Edomite. And people, you know, Jake, here it is 2018, Jake is finally waking up. The Israelites are waking up. And, you know, they try to sit and touch elbows with Edomites, white people, and it's not working because Edomites are showing their true color, man. You know, what does it say in Revelation 12:12? You know? The devil's going to show his true horns, man. What he's all about. For the devil shall come down on you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he had but a short time. His lies are running out. His lies are catching up with him, man. And plus, on top of that, you got us here at Great Millstone. And then I got to mention the other Israelite groups, because, you know, they're teaching that you're Israel. They're not teaching you the full truth. Now, if you want to get the full truth, the whole truth, you got to come to Great Millstone, man. And you got to learn who you are. You know, once you become an Israelite, then you understand why you're here, why your foreparents came over here in cargo slave ships, Deuteronomy 28, verse 68, which these Edomites are saying, oh, that doesn't mean that. It does mean that. Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and the 68th verse. Matter of fact, Deuteronomy, the whole 28th chapter, starting from the 15, 16 verse on down to the 68th verse, is talking about the curses that you were going to go through. And it was talking about the curses going back in the past. Part of the curses is when you came to the Americas and served slavery. It tells you in Joel, the 3rd chapter, in the 3rd verse on down, it speaks about how they sold us for a wine that they may drink. You know, they cast lots for us. So when you read about when you read the scriptures and you read about the Israelites, we are those people. We are those people. And you have no business, you know, getting together with Edomites, man. The scripture said in Amos, the 3rd chapter, how can two walk together except they be agreed? And we don't agree. When you go to Genesis, the 25th chapter, from the 19th verse on down, key point is in the 25th verse, it speaks about the story of Jacob and Esau. Now, our people are beginning to wake up to the fact that these people that are the enemies that we became slaves under are Edomites for the most part, and we're Israelites. That's the only answer, man. We're not Kemetic people. We're not so-called Africans. Okay, we're not Moors, although the Moors were Israelites. That was just a generic term that was put on them, man. Let me put this back, see what happens. Okay, it just stopped. But anyway, I caught it, you know, because I get a lot of these, you know, I get a lot of these channels with, what do you call it? What's this? Apple TV or whatever. You get a lot of these Access type channels, all right. But anyway, I'm gonna close it out. I'm gonna put this up on the YouTube. Anyway, the New York Times, English black worshipers have been quietly fleeing white megachurches since the 2016 election. Okay, how can black and white worshipers create churches that are integrated and inclusive? It's not going to happen because they, when you go back to the story of Jacob and Esau, go back to the book of Genesis, the 25th chapter from the 19th verse on down, and you read that when Rebecca had these two children, they were fighting in their womb. We were always fighting against each other, man. And now we're getting ready to come up in our kingdom, all right? And you Edomites, you're going to be under us. You're going to be our slaves. And we're going to whip your ass. We're going to put you on the bottom. We're going to have you working in the fields. We're going to fuck you up. And that's your future. This place is going down. This place is done. And the way Babylon the Great is going to be destroyed is by thermonuclear destruction. And Yahushua, which the world ignorantly called Jesus, so-called Jesus Christ, and the angels, they're going to be shooting lasers out the ship. Read, what's that, 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter. We're the Israelites, man. The reason why you're in the condition that you're in, because you are the Israelites. And not just you, but the so-called Negroes, West Indian, so-called Puerto Rican, North American Indians, Seminole Indians, Mexican Indians, you know. The people of North, Central, and South America of Indian and so-called Negro descent are the Israelites. And the so-called white men, and you have a lot of Israelites that look just like white Edomites. So just because somebody's white doesn't mean that they're the devil. In other words, if they look like an Edomite, but their line goes back to Israelites, they're Israelites, man. So the only thing that Edomite, so-called white man could do is hope that he's an Israelite. That's the only thing he can do. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom. 3 videos a day, baby.